Hi everyone and welcome back to SwitchUp, and boy do we have some good videos for you. We're going to look at the Shadowrun Trilogy on the Nintendo Switch. It's a series that I've completed many times back in the day, and jumping back into these has been a delight. But how do they perform on the Nintendo Switch? We'll look at frame rates, the visual quality, text size, as well as their handheld performance. The game review part will be the second half of this video, just because they've been out before, I've played them before, so probably most of you want to know more about the performance. A thanks to the publisher for the review copy. Is it a triumphant return or a dead man's Switch? Well, let's find out. Let's not beat around the bush, the games are targeting 60 frames per second, and they're running at native resolution in both docked and handheld modes. The 60 frames per second target, however, isn't always maintained. In the open areas, it fluctuates at around about 55 FPS, which isn't bad, but it would have potentially been more sensible for them to have locked it out at a slightly lower FPS, as there are a few stutters and hitches that occur when you're moving around. It's generally really fluid, you can probably see that from the footage on the screen, but when you have the choice between good frame pacing or a higher fluctuating frame rate, you choose frame pacing every day of the week. Performance still feels really good, particularly when you're in the indoor areas, where those fluctuations tend to be at a minimum. For a game that originally released back in 2013, so almost a decade old, it's held up remarkably well. The fixed view isometric visuals look lovely. That hand-painted style with the 3D character models over the top is one I don't know why isn't used more often. Each character you meet in the world has a very distinct artistic style. Portraits of them are shown on the screen, and these have also been suitably upscaled and look nice and crispy. The 3D models haven't aged as well as some of the other aspects, but they're still more than serviceable, although the animations aren't quite what they once were. The image quality is very strong across the board in both docked and handheld modes. Playing this one on the OLED screen is a delight, and the load times are very good across all three games. In a game that's so text heavy, I was very keen to have a look at the text size, and was a little disappointed to see that there were no options to change the font size. However, when playing in docked mode, it's very large and it's absolutely fine, easy enough to read even from a distance. Playing in handheld with the OLED Switch, it is a little smaller than I would like. Perhaps if the developers could include an option for that to slightly increase in size when you play in handheld, it would make sense. It's still more than legible, but there's no voice acting here, and it's a highly sought after feature, particularly if you're playing with a smaller Switch model. As you can see though, it's a game that really benefits from that smaller, potentially OLED screen on the Nintendo Switch, and it really shines when played in handheld. Textures look crisp, character models look decent, and the cyberpunk colour scheme just fits with that OLED screen. Everything just pops. Then we've got bugs. First, as far as crashes go, I haven't experienced a single crash on any of the three games. I've probably put in around about 8 to 10 hours across the three titles, but that's not to say that you won't experience crashes. I always make sure that I install to the internal system memory. You can have some problems when you don't do that, but still it's one of those things that seems to be completely random at times, but for what it's worth, I haven't crashed. I have had a few minor audio bugs. There were a couple of times where the music seemed to stop when it shouldn't, but then it started back up again. I also noticed some characters flickering on and off the screen as I moved around. Not all the time and never the main character, but perhaps a few bug fixes needed. Finally then, there's some slightly quirky AI pathfinding, which resulted in me chasing one of the NPCs who I had to talk to because she had decided that she was just going to move forwards and backwards randomly. These are issues that have always been in the game, they're not new to the Switch model, and you may encounter them or you may not. What I will say is my main takeaway is that it's been an incredibly enjoyable experience here. Not flawless, but very, very good. If they can lock out that 60 FPS and clean up some of the minor stutters, it really will be a glorious place to play. That then takes us onto the audio. The music was originally composed by Marshall Parker and Sam Powell, and to Glen's delight, I'm sure, they were actually involved with the original SNES and Sega Genesis iterations. Now, I never played the original games, but what I can say from hundreds of hours playing through this trilogy, the musical score is excellent. And although the second and third games are composed by John Everest, it all has that same flavour. A soundtrack that Ridley Scott would happily use in a Blade Runner movie. It would potentially be the perfect game to have voice work, and perhaps it's a bridge too far to have hoped that they would go down that avenue, but, well, they didn't. Visuals then, bar a few minor issues, are excellent. It's nice that they've targeted 60 FPS, but they need to maintain it. And there are some minor bugs to iron out, but they don't detract from the experience. They score 16 out of 20. Audio fidelity is high, but the sound effects aren't quite up to the same standard as the music. But what music it is. Audio scores 18 out of 20. Giving you the narrative of all three games would take forever, so we'll just look at Shadowrun Returns, which sees your main protagonist on the receiving end of a message from his good friend who unfortunately has passed away, and which has activated a dead man's switch. And this is how you find yourself hot on the heels of a serial killer, known only as the Ripper. As with any good CRPG worth its salt, there are lots of side missions and quests, and they're well written. In fact, everything in Shadowrun is well written, and it makes a big difference to just how enjoyable those side quests are. When a downtrodden father's begging you to save his son, who's about to be used in the worst possible way, the gritty bloodbath that follows, for me, is far more compelling than some of the more lazy fetch quest style missions we see in modern games. It just goes to show that the task can essentially be the same, but by weaving a compelling motivation for the player, the experience can feel very different. Dragonfall then focused around the area of Berlin, and there you'll meet an old acquaintance, while Shadowrun Hong Kong is set in 2056 and begins feeling like a very strong influence on Cyberpunk 2077 as you meet your old acquaintance Duncan, and things go to hell. The gameplay is similar across all three titles. It's classic RPG. Move with the left stick, control the camera with the right, and click it in to refocus. Due to the nature of the visuals, you cannot rotate that camera, which is one of its weakest areas. Before you begin your experience, you'll be crafting your own character. There are some preset designs, some focusing on hacking, others magical abilities, or simply those that prefer the rush of battle, but you can fully customize these in any which way you choose, and ditch the archetypes, creating whoever you want. You'll name them, give them a nickname, and head into the game. And that's divided into two main areas. The exploration, where you can track your main and side quests from your diary, and you're given clear waypoints in the corner of the screen to show you where to go next. And when combat's initiated, it takes on a tactical turn-based system. There are 3 difficulty modes, so you can tailor this to suit your needs, but whichever you choose, it will rely on a very familiar system if you're used to games like XCOM. A shield will indicate the level of cover provided by an obstacle, and you'll have a number of action points, thus allowing you to perform special moves. You can freely choose which member of your party to use first. You don't have to use them in a specific order, which is something I always liked. And it's a percentage driven but very quick tactical system. Battles generally play out in a few minutes, and they're a whole lot of fun. Small things like being able to switch between your weapons without it costing you any of those AP are more focused on enjoyment and are a welcome change to, again, some of the modern games. Being victorious in combat and quests will grant you experience, which you can then freely use to bolster your character's skill sets. I never went down the avenue of using the Decker skills, but they can essentially enter a Matrix-style virtual reality environment, and there's hacking, magic use, and you can even unlock the ability to control and use drones in combat. Jordan Wiseman, who created the tabletop game that this is based on, wanted to create a futuristic, gritty cyberpunk RPG, and that's exactly what this is. I'm almost positive that when it first released, the save system was a bit dodgy, but now you can save whenever you want just by going into the menu and going to save. That alone has made it less frustrating than it used to be, because you won't be backtracking if something goes wrong. Obviously, the Nintendo Switch does not have the mods and other things that you can find on the PC versions, and they're really enjoyable games. There are some new gameplay mechanics introduced with the other games, but the core experience is the same. I give gameplay 17 out of 20, and the controls also score 17 out of 20. That then takes us onto value, and the full trilogy is retailing at the moment at £26.99. That's a 25% discount, but that's only today and tomorrow. After that, it's going to go up to £35.99. You can purchase the games individually, but realistically, you're going to want to get them together. Returns took me around about 12 hours, I believe, back in the day. But again, there's lots of secrets and other side content that could expand that. Dragonfall is a longer experience, and you could go up to 50 hours easily if you're looking for every single thing. So combined all three games, I'd say easily a 60 to 100 hour package of high quality classic RPG, which is not something we've got a great deal of on Switch. That being said, if I was paying £35.99, with the age of the games, it just feels like that would be a tad high. You won't be disappointed though, they're very enjoyable, and on sale at the moment, it's just about the right price for me. Still, overall, I'll give value 14 out of 20, because that sale only goes on for another day. The Switch is almost the best place to play these games. In handheld, it's just fantastic, and docked, it really looks decent even to this day. A few minor quirks don't detract from what's an excellent package, but I think £29.99 as the base price would have been closer to the mark. Overall, it gets a SwitchUp score of 82%. Let us know in the comments, are you considering checking these out? Are you also a fan of the original board games, or do you just really want some more CRPG action on your Switch? Thanks to our patrons, you guys are amazing, and to all of you that just enjoy the channel. If you like it, then consider sticking around. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!